What's up everyone? So this weekend is going to be pretty awesome. I am picking up my motorcycle tomorrow and I cannot wait to see it for the first time. Obviously, as you're watching this video on YouTube, things checked out pretty well, so it's time to show you guys the bike. Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. So today's video is kind of a sad one. This is the last video with my 2007 Honda CBR600rr. Now I haven't filmed any videos with this recently, but check out our motorcycle playlist with this along with my brother's Yamaha R6. He recently sold his bike as well. So if you want to see all of the bike content that we have, check out that playlist. This is 8 years of ownership for me with my CBR600rr. This has been a dream motorcycle of mine ever since I was a little kid. I'm a huge fan of blue, and when I found this one, which they only made in 2007 and 2008 with this color scheme, I knew that this was the bike for me. So I bought this bike in March of 2016. It had 12,000 miles on it exactly when I bought this. It now has just over 34,000, so I've put roughly 22,000 miles on this bike over the last 8 years. The first year that I bought this bike, I put just over 6,000 miles on it, and over this last year I did just over 700. So times have changed, unfortunately. I still love riding it when I can. So before we go on one last ride with my CBR600rr, I've added up the totals with how much this bike has cost me over the last 8 years of ownership. So I thought it would be interesting to share that. These are relatively inexpensive to maintain, and after I added up everything together, I was kind of shocked. But let's go over what this bike has been like to own, to maintain, to keep on the road for the last 8 years. So I want to start off with how much it has cost to keep this bike operating out on the road. Now keep in mind, over the last 8 years, obviously prices have increased, so I'm just going to do a general average for the cost of everything that I'm listing. I'm going to start off with insurance, right around $112 a year for this bike. That's full coverage, and that's paying a one-time payment. So it was cheaper than paying it every single month. You add that up, that's about $900 total for insurance. Registration, $30 a year, so about $240. And then for the inspection, this is something that not every state requires. So I've lived in 2 different states with this bike. One state required annual inspections, one state did not. So for the times that I needed that annual inspection, they're about $12 an inspection, so about $50 for that timing. And I wanted to talk about fuel and the MPG for this bike. It has a 4.8 gallon fuel tank. Let's say premium fuel, $3 on average a gallon. That's about $15 a tank. I can go right around 145 to 150 miles on the tank, depending on how I'm driving. So if I'm doing a lot more mountain driving versus city driving, obviously that's going to vary slightly. But I calculated over 22,000 miles riding this bike. I've spent roughly $2,300 on fuel. Now, as far as maintenance, keeping this bike in tip-top shape, let's start off with a new set of tires. Now I have gone through 2 full sets of tires for this bike over the last 22,000 miles. Now on average, you can find a single tire, front or rear, for about $200 to $230. You can find them a little bit cheaper than that, but on average, I've been finding or have paid right around that cost. Now this is something that I cannot do. I can change dirt bike tires. They are much more forgiving. On this, I just don't have the equipment, especially to get the front wheel off the ground and to change that tire. I could get the rear one off, but I paid for someone to do that. And on average, about $1,000 worth of tires and labor over the last 8 years. Now I want to talk real quick about the Michelin Pilot Power 3 tires that I've had on this bike. When I bought this bike with 12,000 miles on it, this was the tire setup that was on the bike. I told myself when I bought this bike that I would never ride in the rain. And you say that, right? But first time I got caught in the rain, it was pretty scary, but these tires were amazing. I felt super comfortable and confident riding through the rain with these tires that I just decided to replace them with another set. So that's how I came up with this tire, or wanted to continue to use this tire. Highly recommend it. It's very grippy for mountain driving. It's also incredibly confident in the rain. So ever since the first time I got caught in the rain, I had no issues driving in the rain. So if I got caught in it, I knew that I had the proper tire setup for how I felt comfortable in riding in the rain. But let's move on to oil changes now for this. So I've done 8 oil changes, 1 every year, of course. This bike takes 3 quarts on average, $8 per quart. So you're looking at $24 or $200 over the last 8 years for oil. And filters range between $9 and $15, so about $100 for the last 8 years. Chain and sprocket. This is something that I just recently replaced. So I had the OEM chain on this bike until 31,000 miles. So it lasted that long. I finally replaced the chain and both sprockets. That was a cost of $250. I was able to do that myself. And also under our motorcycle playlist, you can see all of the DIY mods and everything about these bikes that we've done. So you can check out that video on how we did that chain replacement. And when you add up all of those numbers, the grand total for what I have spent on this bike to keep it out on the road, just over $5,000 over the last 8 years. It really hasn't been all that much to keep this out on the road. It's so incredibly cheap to maintain and to operate that it's a fun toy to have, aside from the expense of actually buying the vehicle with the purchase price of it. But that's going to range depending on the bike that you get, of course. It's been a phenomenal bike. It is so much fun and I'm going to miss it. But I thought that would be cool just to give you guys an update on how much it actually costs to operate a motorcycle. You're really not looking at all that much. And we have a nice backdrop with the lake behind us to view this bike one last time. I'm gonna miss it. It's 8 years that this bike has been in my life, and it's been such a fun vehicle. It's just a materialistic item, of course, but the fun factor of riding this bike has been the greatest thing. It's fun just to get out, clear your mind, go for a ride, and just have some fun being in nature, going on back roads, things like that. But speaking of back roads, let's get this out on some twisties here that I can get to. I'm not going on a long ride, but let's get this out for one final ride and talk about what it's like to ride. All right, so here we go for one last ride on the CBR600rr. Now I want to start off a little bit of history on this bike and basically why I decided to buy this. So I grew up riding and racing dirt bikes. I currently still have my dirt bike, so I'm not fully getting rid of 2 wheels just yet. But I grew up racing dirt bikes when I went off to college, and after I graduated college, got a full-time job. I didn't really have the time to ride dirt bikes. I moved out of state from my family, so I didn't take my dirt bike or anything with me, and I knew that I wanted to continue to ride 2 wheels, and a motorcycle was going to be the next best option. So from my experience riding dirt bikes, I've had some friends who bought 250cc motorcycles, and they quickly went up to 600s, and so that was an easy step for me to skip. Growing up riding dirt bikes, I went straight to this 600cc. This has been the only motorcycle that's been street legal that I have ever owned. So basically for almost a beginner motorcycle, this is something that you can buy and just kind of work your way up into. And slowly start to learn the bike and just experience what it's like. This thing redlines at 15,000, so obviously it has a lot more than what I'm doing on these roads here, but out on the track I've been able to get it close to that, and it just, with this exhaust too, it screams and it sounds so good. But so when I bought the bike, I was 24 years old and living out of state. I didn't really have a lot of friends just yet, so I would ride the bike all of the time. I rode it a minimum of 3 days a week just to work. So I did a lot of commuting with it, going to the gym. I went grocery shopping with this. I'd put a large backpack on and get all the food that I needed for a few days. But I rode it pretty much every single day. I went on a lot of mountain trips. I lived near some mountains, so I could go on pretty long adventures on the weekends or something like that. And so I bought this with the intent of riding it a lot, and that's what I did. The first year I rode just over 6,000 miles on this bike. I was riding it back home, so a couple hours each way, and this is just something that I commuted with. At the time I had one vehicle and I had my motorcycle, so on beautiful days I would just plug in my car and I would ride my bike a lot. Also, speaking about riding, I forgot to mention in the price of owning this bike, all of the gear that I'm wearing. You can see I've gone through a lot of gloves, as you can tell here, but even with my boots, all my gear, that was about $1,000. So add that to the cost of owning a bike. If you want to stay safe, you know, keep all your skin, you need to have the correct gear. All right, so let's do another acceleration here. First gear. It's one thing that I really like about the 600cc in general. This is a bike that it can still get you into trouble, but it's something that it's a little bit less than a 1000cc bike as far as weight. So I feel like it's a little bit more manageable, but it still has the power that you want just for everyday normal driving. So personally, I've never seen a need to want to go up to a 1000, other than it has a lot more low-end power for sure, a lot of top-end too. But I've been super happy with the 600 over the last 8 years. It's so much fun to ride. But after I got that first job, I rode it almost all the time. Then I moved back closer to family, where we started doing a lot more family trips along with mountain rides with larger groups. So my brother and I would be the only two sport bikes in a group of Harleys, Gold Wings, bikes like that. But we would still have fun. We would go out, do the group riding events, and put 200-300 miles on the bikes in a day. So we did that for a long time, a couple years. We would do rides like that, and so we were still riding them, going to the gym, riding them as much as we could. And then I got married recently, and not to say getting married means that you automatically have to sell all your fun toys, but my wife likes to ride, so we've gone on several rides. We've gone out of state on the bike, so we have a couple hundred miles, probably closer to 1,000 miles together on this particular bike. And it's worked well. The rear seat is incredibly small, so it is, I mean, you can make it work for two people as we have. If I do decide to get another bike, I'm going to get one that's a lot more comfortable for her on the back, just for the longer rides that we have done. So my wife and I have rode this bike. She's going to miss it. We just don't ride together a lot. We do some other activities and family things and all that. So we don't ride it together anymore, hardly ever. But she loves it. She's going to miss it too. And so let's fast forward to the last year of ownership with this CBR600. I've done just over 700 miles. So first year, 6,000. I'd say second and third year, we're close to the 4,000 to 5,000 mile range. And then it's slowly dwindled down to just over 700 miles in a year. Now, keep in mind, I try to ride this as much as I can, even in the winter months. But now with our business, we get press vehicles. So I used to use my motorcycle as my press vehicle. If I didn't want to drive a car somewhere, I just hop on my bike and I was good to go. But now that we have press vehicles for our business, we're doing a lot more reviews for videos like that. We need to drive those cars so that way we can give you guys the best reviews on basically our ownership for a year or a week with those cars. So the press cars are something that we drive a lot more, and that's kind of transitioned from my motorcycle to the press cars. So when I used to do all of that riding, commuting to work every single day, which I work for myself now, so I kind of, I decide where I need to go, but I have a lot more gear with me than the normal job that I had before. I have to basically schedule time. Ooh, Aston Martin. I have to schedule time basically to take the bike out to ride. It's not just I'm going to hop on the bike and go from point A to point B and commute like I used to. I need to schedule time, like this video here. I've scheduled time to go out for a ride, film this video, and kind of do a ride while I'm out on the bike. So it's a lot more scheduling, you know, when I need to ride, when I have time to ride, things like that. All right, so I want to interrupt this 8-year update with a 2.5 month update. So since the rest of the video that I've been filming, it's been about 2.5 months, and I've put about 160 miles on this bike. I wanted to give it a little bit of time just to see what my riding would be like, since the weather has started to get much warmer. During the colder months, I just didn't ride it as much. With all the press cars and everything, and it being cold, I just didn't take it out as much as I would normally do in some of the winter months. So we are out on a beautiful morning. It is probably in the 60s right now. This is just a perfect time to get the bike out. So for 2.5 months now, about 160 miles isn't all that much, but I've kind of changed my thoughts on this motorcycle. This is something that I honestly just don't really want to get rid of at this point in time. Even though I don't ride it as much as I used to, it is still fun to me. It's worth it for me right now for it to sit sometimes for the times that I do want to ride it. So it's not that much money. This bike has been paid off since I bought it, so it's just been something that I can have in the garage and ride it whenever I want to. So while it does sit a little bit more than I would like it to, I enjoy these times right now. So trying to find the time to finish this video and get out. I've been riding it obviously since the beginning of this video, but even just, you know, being able to get out early in the morning like this and take it for a cruise, it's a lot of fun. So for the 8 years, you know, the riding has gone down, but this bike is in great shape. There's nothing wrong with it. I just have to do my regular maintenance on it, and I can keep it going, you know, for quite a long time. So it's been such a fun bike, as I've already said in this video, and I don't know, I can't see getting rid of it right now. Maybe at some point, you know, if I have kids or something and I really truly cannot ride it, even as the times that I do right now, maybe I'll get rid of it. But for this last update, I think this will be the last actual video on the bike, unless I find something else that will be worth filming with it. I'm going to hang on to it, even though there won't be really any other content on the bike. So it's just going to be a toy I'm going to have in the background and just have fun with it and get it out when I can. So I hope you enjoyed the motorcycle content that we have made. We have been able to review other motorcycles too, and that's our goal, is to hopefully continue to film bike reviews at some point. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a huge thumbs up. Consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads. I will see you all in the next video.